a thunderstorm, a remote Oregon forest, and a sight that wilderness specialist David Chen would never forget. A young wild Mustang foal standing completely motionless in a clearing while torrential rain pounded down, not seeking shelter, not running to its herd, just standing as if frozen in place. David had worked with wild horses for 12 years, and he knew this behavior was wrong. Dangerously wrong. Young foals didn't stand alone in storms. They huddled with their mothers, sought shelter, followed their herds to safety. But this foal remained perfectly still, head slightly lowered, as if protecting something precious. When David finally got close enough to see what the young horse was hiding beneath its mane and pressed against its small body, his hands began shaking so violently he could barely hold his radio. Because what this wild baby was protecting in that deadly storm wasn't another horse. It wasn't what anyone would expect. And the reason this foal was willing to stand in hypothermic conditions, risking its own life, would challenge everything David thought he understood about animal behavior and interspecies compassion. Subscribe now for incredible true stories of animal heroism that will leave you speechless. David Chen pulled his rain jacket tighter as another gust of wind drove cold rain horizontally through the Cascade Mountain forest. The storm had rolled in faster than forecasted. What was supposed to be light showers had turned into a serious weather event with temperatures dropping into the low 40s, dangerous conditions for both humans and animals. As a wildlife specialist with the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, David's job included monitoring wild horse populations, and he'd been conducting a routine survey of the Silver Creek herd when the storm hit. Now, instead of completing his count, he was trying to get back to his vehicle without getting hypothermia himself. He was about a mile from the trailhead when he saw it, a shape in a clearing about 100 yards away. At first, David thought it might be a deer or elk seeking shelter, but as he focused through the rain, he recognized the distinctive silhouette. A horse. A young horse. A foal. David immediately changed course, pushing through the storm toward the animal. Young foals in this kind of weather needed to be with their mothers, with their herds. A solitary foal in a thunderstorm was at serious risk. Hypothermia, lightning strikes, predation, or simply getting lost and separated from its family group. As he drew closer, details emerged through the sheeting rain. It was a Mustang foal, probably 4 or 5 months old, with a distinctive pinto coat, brown and white patches. The young horse was standing in the middle of the clearing, completely exposed to the elements, making no attempt to seek the shelter of the surrounding trees. But it was the foal's posture that made David's chest tighten with concern. The young horse stood with its head lowered, body rigid, legs slightly splayed as if bracing against something. It wasn't the relaxed stance of a grazing horse or the alert posture of a frightened animal ready to flee. This was something different. Something David had never seen before. "Hey baby. What are you doing out here?" David called out, though his voice was nearly lost in the wind and rain. "Where's your mama?" The foal's ears flicked toward his voice, but the young horse didn't move. Didn't run. Didn't even look up. It just stood there, trembling, whether from cold or something else, David couldn't tell from this distance. David pulled out his binoculars, trying to get a better look through the rain. The foal was soaked, its coat plastered to its body, water streaming off its mane and tail. The young horse had been standing here for a while, long enough to be thoroughly drenched, long enough to be in real danger. But why? Why wasn't it seeking shelter? Why wasn't it with the herd? David scanned the area for adult horses, for any sign of the Silver Creek band. Nothing. The foal was completely alone. He approached slowly, calling out gently, trying not to spook the young animal. 50 yards. 40. 30. The foal remained motionless except for that constant trembling. David could see steam rising from the small body, the contrast between body heat and cold rain creating visible vapor. At 20 yards, David stopped. Something was very wrong here. The foal should have bolted by now. Wild horses didn't let humans approach this close. But this young horse wasn't running. Instead, it seemed determined, rooted in place, as if running would mean abandoning something important. David's mind raced through possibilities. Was the foal injured? Trapped somehow? Sick? Then he heard it. Faint, almost lost in the storm, but unmistakable once he focused. A sound that didn't belong. A sound coming from beneath the foal. A high-pitched, desperate crying. Not the whinny of a horse. Something else entirely. David's heart began pounding as he carefully moved closer, circling to get a better angle. The foal tracked him with its eyes but still didn't move, didn't flee. And as David reached a position where he could see beneath the young horse's lowered neck and mane, what he saw made his breath catch in his throat. Huddled against the foal's chest, partially hidden by the young horse's lowered head and the cascade of its rain-soaked mane, were three tiny shapes. At first, David's mind refused to process what his eyes were seeing. Then clarity came, and with it, disbelief. Puppies. 3 wolf pups. Probably 6 or 7 weeks old, eyes open but still completely dependent, covered in soaked fur, trembling uncontrollably from cold and fear. They were pressed against the foal's body, seeking warmth, seeking shelter from the rain that was drumming down on the young horse's back. And the foal, this wild Mustang baby that should have been terrified of anything even remotely canine, was standing over them, protecting them, using its own body as a shield against the storm, lowering its head and mane to create a partial canopy over the vulnerable pups. David stood frozen, rain pouring down his face, unable to believe what he was witnessing. Wild horses and wolves were not friends. They were predator and prey, had been for thousands of years. Horses feared and avoided wolves and coyotes. A foal encountering wolf pups should have run in terror or, if older and bolder, tried to stomp the threat. But this foal was protecting them. David pulled out his radio with shaking hands. "This is Chin. I have an unusual wildlife situation at my GPS coordinates. I need immediate backup and wildlife rescue. I have a wild Mustang foal, maybe 5 months old, and 3 wolf pups. All appear to be in distress. Weather conditions are critical. I need help now." The response crackled back through static. "Chin, did you say a foal and wolf pups? Together?" "Affirmative. The foal is standing over the pups, protecting them from the storm. I know how it sounds, but that's what I'm looking at." "Copy. Dispatching wildlife rescue and Dr. Martinez from the rehabilitation center. ETA 40 minutes given weather and road conditions. Can you secure the animals?" 40 minutes. In this cold rain with temperatures dropping, 40 minutes could be too long. The pups were already hypothermic. David could see they'd stopped shivering, which was a bad sign, a sign that their body temperature had dropped below the point where shivering was effective. The foal was in better shape due to its larger size and natural insulation, but even it wouldn't survive indefinitely in these conditions. David made a decision. He slowly approached the foal, speaking in low, calm tones. "Easy, baby. Easy. I'm here to help. I'm going to help your little friends, okay? I'm not going to hurt anyone." The foal's ears pinned back slightly, a warning. The young horse took a step, positioning itself more directly between David and the pups. Despite its size, despite being just a baby itself, the foal was ready to defend the creatures beneath it. I know. You're protecting them. You've been so brave. But they're going to die if we don't get them warm. You're going to get sick too. Please let me help." David had emergency supplies in his pack. Space blankets, hand warmers, a small first aid kit. He slowly pulled out a metallic emergency blanket, and the crinkling sound made the foal startle, but it still didn't run. Didn't abandon the pups. Moving with excruciating slowness, David managed to drape one emergency blanket over the foal's back, helping to block some of the rain and retain some of the young horse's body heat. Then, even more carefully, he reached toward the space beneath the foal's head, toward the huddled pups. The foal tensed, made a soft warning sound, but didn't attack, didn't kick. David's fingers touched wet fur, and he carefully pulled one of the pups out from beneath the foal's protective stance. The tiny wolf pup was limp, barely responsive, its body temperature dangerously low. David wrapped the pup in a second emergency blanket and activated hand warmers, holding the bundle against his own chest to share body heat. The foal watched this entire process with what David could only describe as anxious attention. Not aggression, but deep concern. "I've got him, baby. I've got him. He's going to be okay. Now let me get the other 2. One by one, David extracted the remaining 2 pups, wrapping each in emergency blankets and warming them against his body. Throughout this process, the foal remained close, never running, always watching, occasionally touching David's shoulder with its muzzle as if checking on the pups. With all 3 pups secured and warming against David's chest beneath his rain jacket, he radioed for an update on the rescue team. Still 20 minutes out. The storm was slowing their progress on the muddy forest roads. David looked at the foal, still standing in the rain, still trembling. "Come on, little one. Let's get you under some trees at least. Give you a break from this rain." He started moving toward the tree line where a dense cluster of evergreens offered some shelter. To his amazement, the foal followed. This wild horse baby that should have fled from human presence was following David like a domestic horse, staying close to the pups it had been protecting. Under the relative shelter of the trees, David set up his portable tarp as a makeshift shelter. He positioned the warming pups inside, and the foal immediately pushed its way under the tarp as well, positioning itself near the pups, lowering its head to smell them, check them. David sat in the rain. There wasn't room under the small tarp for a full-grown man, 3 pups and a foal, and watched this impossible scene unfold. The foal was grooming the pups, using its tongue to lick the water from their fur, stimulating circulation, providing the kind of care a mother would give. "Where's your mama?" David asked the foal softly. "And where's their mama? How did you all end up together?" As if in answer, David heard a sound in the distance. A howl. Long, mournful, searching. A wolf calling. Then another howl joining the first. The foal's head came up, ears pricked forward. The pups, slowly warming and regaining consciousness, began to whimper and cry in response to the howls. The pack was looking for the pups. But how had the pups gotten separated? And more importantly, how had this foal found them? And why in the name of everything logical about animal behavior, had the foal decided to protect them? The rescue team arrived 28 minutes after David's initial call. A wildlife veterinarian named Dr. Sarah Martinez and 2 rescue technicians, hauling equipment through the mud and rain. Dr. Martinez took one look at the scene. Pups warming under a tarp, wild foal standing guard, David sitting in the rain, and her eyes widened. "David, I need you to tell me exactly what you found and how you found it, because this is—" "I know. Trust me, I know." David explained everything while Dr. Martinez and her team began examining the pups. All 3 were severely hypothermic but appeared otherwise unharmed. No injuries, no signs of illness. With proper warming and care they would survive. "They're incredibly lucky," Dr. Martinez said. "Another hour in that cold rain and they would have died. The question is, how did they end up alone, and how did a wild foal end up protecting them?" One of the rescue technicians, a young woman named Jennifer who specialized in wolf conservation, examined the pups more closely. "These pups are from the Cascade pack. I recognize the markings. We've been monitoring this pack for 3 years. The alpha female had a litter about 6 weeks ago. These must be hers. So what happened? How did they get separated?" Jennifer frowned, checking her tablet for recent pack data. The alpha female was seen 3 days ago with her pups. Everything appeared normal. But she pulled up some notes. There was a report 2 days ago of a territorial dispute between the Cascade pack and a neighboring pack. Could have been a fight, could have caused chaos. Maybe the den was attacked. Maybe the mother moved the pups and got separated from these 3 in the confusion. "And the foal?" Dr. Martinez asked. "How does the foal fit into this?" That was the question no one could answer. David described finding the foal standing over the pups, protecting them in the storm. Dr. Martinez listened with increasing amazement. "David, this is unprecedented. I've worked with wild horses for 15 years. They don't behave this way toward predator species. They especially don't adopt and protect wolf pups." The foal, still standing nearby under the tarp, whinnied softly. The sound was answered by a distant whinny from deeper in the forest. The Silver Creek herd was calling. The foal's head swung toward the sound, ears forward. For the first time since David had found it, the young horse looked torn, pulled between its natural family and the pups it had been protecting. Dr. Martinez made the call to transport the pups to the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center where they could be properly warmed, examined and eventually, hopefully, reunited with their pack. But as the team prepared to load the pups into transport carriers, the foal became agitated. The young horse paced, whinnied, tried to follow the technicians carrying the pups. When they loaded the carriers into the vehicle, the foal attempted to climb in after them. It took David physically blocking the foal to prevent it from jumping into the truck. "Easy, baby, easy. They're going to be okay. We're taking them somewhere safe, somewhere warm. They'll be fine." But the foal was distressed, calling out, trying to push past David to follow the vehicle as it began slowly navigating the muddy road back to civilization. The young horse's distress was visceral, heartbreaking. It was experiencing separation anxiety from creatures it had been protecting, creatures it had bonded with. Another whinny echoed from the forest, closer now. The Silver Creek herd was coming, probably drawn by the foal's calls. David knew he needed to make a decision. The foal needed to return to its herd, to its mother. But the young horse's bond with the wolf pups was clearly profound. Dr. Martinez returned from the vehicle. "David, we have a problem. The foal has been standing in cold rain for hours. I did a quick assessment while we were loading the pups. Its body temperature is lower than I'd like, and it's showing signs of stress and exhaustion. I want to bring it to the center too, at least for the night, to warm it up, make sure it doesn't develop pneumonia. It's a wild horse, Sarah. We can't just—" "I know the protocol. But look at it. That foal saved those pups' lives by standing over them for hours. The least we can do is make sure it doesn't die from the effort. David looked at the foal, still calling toward the direction the vehicle had gone, still trembling from cold. The young horse had put itself at risk to save creatures it had no evolutionary reason to protect. The least they could do was make sure that sacrifice didn't result in the foal's own death. Okay, but just for tonight. We warm it up, check it out, and then tomorrow we bring it back here and reunite it with the herd. Getting a wild foal into a trailer was normally impossible. It would require sedation, special equipment, extreme caution. But this foal, exhausted and still fixated on following the pups, walked into the trailer with minimal coaxing, as if understanding that this metal box was the way to follow its adopted charges. At the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, the foal was placed in a large heated stall with deep bedding. Dr. Martinez and her team worked efficiently, checking temperature, listening to lungs, treating minor scrapes and abrasions. The foal tolerated all of it with surprising patience, though its attention kept drifting to the other side of the facility where the wolf pups were being cared for. Core temperature is 97.2, Dr. Martinez reported. Not critical but definitely hypothermic. Lungs sound clear, but we'll monitor for signs of pneumonia over the next 24 hours. Overall, this little one is remarkably healthy considering what it went through. As the night progressed and the foal warmed up, the staff made a decision that bent protocols but felt right. They brought one of the wolf pups, now warmed and stable, into the foal's stall for a brief visit. The reunion was extraordinary. The foal immediately lowered its head, sniffing the pup, nickering softly. The pup, recognizing its protector, crawled toward the foal and curled up against the young horse's front legs. The foal stood perfectly still, careful not to step on the tiny creature, occasionally lowering its head to gently groom the pup's fur. David, watching through the stall window, felt tears in his eyes. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "How did this happen?" Jennifer, the wolf specialist, stood beside him. "I have a theory." "It's just a theory, but what if the foal found the pups shortly after they were separated from their mother? Pups that age are still nursing, still completely dependent. They would have been crying, distressed. The foal, also young, also recently separated from constant maternal contact, might have responded to those distress calls. But wolves and horses. I know. But we're learning that young animals, before they fully develop species-specific fear responses, can form attachments across species lines. This foal may have been young enough that it didn't recognize the pups as threats. Instead, it recognized vulnerable babies in distress. And something in that young horse's brain said, protect them. The next morning dawned clear and bright, the storm having passed through during the night. The foal had spent the night warm and safe, and Dr. Martinez confirmed no signs of pneumonia or other complications. It was time to return the young horse to its wild herd. The 3 wolf pups were thriving under care. Jennifer had been in contact with wildlife trackers who had located the Cascade Pack's alpha female. She was searching frantically for her missing pups, and preparations were being made to reunite them within the next 48 hours using established protocols for wild wolf rehabilitation. But first, the foal needed to go home. David drove back to the same area where he'd found the young horse, accompanied by Dr. Martinez and 2 technicians. They'd brought GPS data showing the Silver Creek herd's recent movements and had located them grazing in a meadow about a mile from where David had found the foal. Unloading the foal from the trailer was surprisingly easy. The young horse walked out calmly, looked around, scented the air. Then it heard something that made its ears prick forward. A whinny. An answering call from the forest. A bay mare emerged from the tree line, running toward the foal with clear purpose. Mother and baby reunited with obvious joy, the mare frantically checking her foal, nickering, the foal pressing against its mother, nursing briefly, both clearly relieved. How long had they been separated? Dr. Martinez asked quietly. Based on the foal's behavior and condition when I found it, probably less than 24 hours. Long enough for the foal to have been frightened and alone. Long enough to have encountered those lost pups. They watched as the mare led her foal back toward the herd, the young horse following closely. But before disappearing into the forest, the foal stopped, turned, and looked back at David. For a long moment, the young horse stood there as if acknowledging something. Then it was gone, returned to the wild where it belonged. 3 days later, Jennifer contacted David with an update. We reunited the pups with their mother. The alpha female accepted them immediately. They're nursing, they're healthy, they're going to be fine. David, those pups would have died if that foal hadn't protected them. No question. Have you seen the foal again? Funny you should ask. We've been monitoring the Silver Creek herd to document the foal's reintegration. Yesterday one of our camera traps caught something interesting. She pulled up an image on her tablet. It showed the Silver Creek herd grazing near the edge of a clearing. And in the distance, barely visible at the tree line, were shapes. Wolves. The Cascade Pack. The herds and packs usually avoid each other. But we've documented them in proximity 3 times since the rescue. Almost like they're aware of each other but not threatened. As if something changed. Some understanding was reached. David looked at the image, at the impossible proximity of predator and prey. That foal saved those pups. Maybe the pack knows. Maybe the herd knows. Maybe something shifted. I know how that sounds, Jennifer said. But David, we're documenting behavior here that's never been recorded before. Cross-species rescue, adoption behavior, sustained protective care from a young horse toward infant wolves. This is going to change how we understand animal cognition and empathy. 6 months later, David was conducting his regular survey of the Silver Creek herd. The foal, now a healthy yearling, was thriving. As David watched through binoculars, something caught his eye. The young horse had wandered to the edge of the meadow, grazing near the tree line. And from the trees, 3 young wolves emerged, adolescents now but recognizable from their markings. They approached the young horse cautiously. The horse raised its head, looked at the wolves, and for a moment, David held his breath. Then the young horse lowered its head, took a step toward the wolves. One of them, David could have sworn it was the largest pup, the one that had curled against the foal's legs in the stall, approached closer. The horse and wolf touched noses briefly. Not aggression. Not fear. Recognition. Then the moment passed. The wolves disappeared back into the forest. The young horse returned to grazing. And David sat in wonder, knowing he'd witnessed something that science books said was impossible, but that his eyes had seen with absolute clarity. Sometimes, the bonds that form in moments of crisis transcend everything biology and evolution say should be true. Sometimes, a terrified baby horse finds lost baby wolves in a storm and makes the choice to become their guardian. And sometimes, that impossible choice changes everything. The young Mustang, now 3 years old, continues to thrive with the Silver Creek herd and has had a foal of its own. The 3 wolves from the Cascade Pack have grown into healthy adults and remain with their family group. Wildlife researchers continue to document occasional peaceful proximity between the Silver Creek horses and Cascade wolves, an unusual but consistent pattern of mutual tolerance. Dr. Sarah Martinez published a paper on the incident titled Cross-Species Rescue Behavior in Wild Ungulates that has sparked international discussion about animal cognition and empathy. David Chin still monitors wild horse populations and says that day in the rain changed his understanding of what animals are capable of feeling and doing for one another. The area where the rescue occurred has been designated as protected habitat for both the horse herd and wolf pack. If this incredible true story of impossible compassion and the mysterious bonds that can form between natural enemies moved you, subscribe for more extraordinary animal stories. Hit that like button, share this video, and tell us in the comments. Do you believe animals can feel empathy across species lines? Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the wildest acts of courage happen in silence, sometimes the smallest heroes have the biggest hearts, and sometimes a baby standing in the rain is protecting something far more precious than its own safety.